Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with best-selling author, photographer, digital filmmaker, and adventurer, Marc Silber. Though this podcast focuses on YouTube success stories and how you can replicate them, Marc's accomplishments go well beyond this digital Wild West. He has an incredible production company named Silber Studios that helps individuals and companies tell their stories through digital filmmaking. He's written several books, one of which shares the name of his YouTube channel called Advancing Your Photography. Advancing Your Photography, the YouTube channel, has amassed over 124,000 subscribers and over 10.6 million total channel views. Here, you'll see interviews with accomplished photographers, lighting tips, and literally anything you need to know about becoming more comfortable around a camera. Marc, I'm excited to be speaking with you today. I've given my spiel. Is there anything you'd like to add about yourself?
I like the adventurer part, Grant. You know, that's actually, I started out as a mountaineering instructor many, many years ago for the National Outdoor Leadership School, and I carried a camera with me all the time. And one of the cool things about my adventures, and I've managed to write many of them in my books, and it's cool because you can dip back into those photographs from years ago and pull them out and still repurpose them. In fact, I'm going to be talking about on my broadcast on Thursday some photographs I took in high school.
Oh, wow.
Long time ago. And I managed to pull off something which was pretty amazing. I have no idea how I did it. My last semester of high school, I talked the school principal into letting me go to Mexico to work in a remote village instead of hanging around high school. So I do like adventures.
Wow. So you've been living the dream for quite a while now, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so dreams aren't always pleasant. So yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes they're fun and sometimes they're not. But yeah, I've been trying to follow a path of discovery and also helping other people and teaching them at the same time.
That is wonderful. So clearly you've lived a full life. You've gone on many adventures. You have this production company. You've made countless films throughout your life. How has YouTube tied into that? And also, more importantly, how has YouTube fed into that?
You know, YouTube has just been such a great platform for getting knowledge out to people. And I wish I jumped on it from the very beginning when I first heard about it. All I could think of was people were making cat videos, and I'm like, I don't know why I would ever use that. But then it started to gain credibility, because I could see other photographers were posting, and I jumped into it, but not as strongly as I could have. But I just kept uploading and started noticing. It was just almost by accident. I started noticing people were watching my films, and I'd already made these because I had a really great sponsorship with SanDisk. They had brought me on to create content for them, but I owned all the content. So it was really cool because then I could just take the same videos and start uploading them to YouTube. And I did that for a long time. I had so many videos I'd already created that even uploading one a week, it took a long time to get them all up there. But to answer your question, I guess YouTube has really just been a really great way for me to leverage, the interviews that I've done and the knowledge I've gained and help people out.
Yeah, I've noticed your channel has quite an eclectic variety of videos on it. So you, like I mentioned this earlier, you have interviews, you have photography tip videos. Some are interviews and photography tip videos all in one, and they're incredibly helpful. So I actually just bought a bunch of very nice photography equipment, and your channel kind of came at the right time in my life here.
Good to hear.
So it sounds like you kind of use your channel as like whatever you feel like posting, you post. Is that kind of your overall philosophy? Is that oversimplified or is that correct?
I mean, we try to follow a pattern that that stays on brand for me. My brand is primarily doing interviews, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it as far as asking questions that I believe that the audience will be interested in. And that's the beauty of editing too. You can ask a question. If it goes nowhere, you just cut it out, right? Not so with a live interview, but most of my interviews are not live. But I feel like I'm trying to stay the course with that. But now I'm actually developing something else, which is I'm talking more about my own experiences with photography and even kind of getting into my own life experiences that I think could be helpful. So I'm using it. I'm really kind of testing that out right now. Like, for instance, my next live broadcast, I'm going to be talking about how to find your purpose as an artist or a photographer, because that's really important. If you don't really know why are you dragging your camera out, what are you pointing it at, you're going to have a hard time coming away with something meaningful that seems interesting to you and other people.
That is a fact. That finding my purpose as an artist has definitely been on my mind for the last, we'll say, 6 years or so.
Yeah.
It's an ever-evolving question, and that's great. I think that's a wonderful topic. Especially you said it was going to be a live stream.
It is.
So it'll be interactive. People can kind of ask you questions.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing I really enjoy about live streams. I do them every week, every Thursday. And I do enjoy having that audience there to, you see them popping in from all over the world, and they're asking questions in real time. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for real. And have you found that live streams have gotten you closer to your audience? Like,
for sure.
Recurring viewers in there.
Absolutely.
And they start getting to know you on a personal level.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Grant, because I found people who've bought my books and read my books. I had no idea who these people were. But they'll show up on my live stream, and all of a sudden I have a conversation with them. And I've even taken it further, where I've interviewed some of these people on the phone. I've interviewed them in a Zoom kind of atmosphere where I can actually see them, like you and I. And it's really interesting to hear from my readers and from my viewers and to really talk to them. That's not something you often get to do. I always find that a thrill.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting. So your book, Advancing Your Photography, which of course is the same name as your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You've actually had viewers come to your YouTube channel who have read your book. That's amazing. So I am curious, how exactly has YouTube affected your ability to sell books? Have you found that it's been a big driver of traffic? Because I look, all your videos, links in the description, easy to find your books, all your stuff. How has that been for you? It's
been a steady source, and it's not the biggest source. My bigger source is usually when I get on to a much broader, larger platform like Scott Kelby, for instance, who's really huge in the photography world. I've been on his shows a number of times, but it's definitely a steady flow, and it goes back and forth. I'll find people who watch my videos and then say, I'll buy your book. And I found people who bought my book and now come and watch my YouTube videos. And what I'm trying to do is also just provide more value to my readers by giving them a kind of a steady update. These are my newer thoughts, The things that I wrote in the book are I'm trying to make them really evergreen. And I did. I didn't want it to go out of date because, especially when you're talking about digital photography, if you start talking too specifically about equipment, 2 years from now, it's going to look, obsolete. You're talking about a model that doesn't exist. So I try to avoid that. I'm really targeting those universal points of photography that have been around for over 100 years. And even points about composition and lighting that will never, ever go out of style. Those are just key points that you're always going to use. And those are the kinds of things I really like to try to focus on.
And I think that's very smart. So you said the word evergreen, and that's something I'm always recommending to people
Yeah.
if they're trying to not just succeed on YouTube, but also succeed in selling something outside of YouTube. Because, you put all this effort into a video or into a book or whatever it is, and you want people to see that video 5 years from now and be able to feel it's just as relevant as it was 5 years ago. And then, it's passive income. It's a steady stream, as you put it. And I think that's valuable, smart stuff.
I really aim for that, Grant, on all my content, whether it's a photograph or writing or video, whatever. I don't want it to have a short shelf life. I want it to stay relevant for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Great. And have you found that like YouTube has connected you with people that you otherwise would not have connected with? So the reason I ask is some people, they've had full lives and they're kind of wondering like, why bother with YouTube? Is this worth it? Like, do you feel that it has opened you to opportunities and to connections that you otherwise would not have been able to do? I mean, you just, like you said, you essentially have uploaded videos that you already just had to YouTube, and they reached a new audience. Like, how have your connections grown thanks to your channel?
Well, it definitely affords me an opportunity to interview people and talk to people that I wouldn't have otherwise. There's no question about that. If I just said to a photographer, hey, I want to talk and I don't know where I'm going to use this, most of them probably would decline, because they're busy people. And but when they can see it has a purpose, and they also can see that I've interviewed a lot of other people that are really well known, anyone from Annie Leibovitz, who's really undoubtedly one of the biggest names in photography, Ansel Adams. Everybody has heard of Ansel Adams. I didn't get to interview him personally, but I've interviewed his son a number of times, and also his son gave me unreleased footage. So sometimes it's through a family member that I, get to interview an historical figure. But I'm good about, if I read a book, for instance, and I find it interesting, I will track down the author, either through Instagram or email or whatever, and I'll ask them to be on the show. They don't always say yes. And sometimes it takes 6 months for them to be able to do it because they're really busy. But my percentage is pretty good on that, and it's kind of fun because then I get to fill in. I like their book and I want to ask them questions about it.
Yeah, I can tell you enjoy giving interviews. Like your body language is very relaxed and you ask good questions, and I think that's great that you're essentially using YouTube as a passion project that happens to be useful.
That's true.
And like as a general rule, that's my overall advice with the platform is, if you already have a career that's going well, you can kind of just use YouTube as a passion project platform, and you'll find that you end up flourishing even more by doing that. And so I did want to ask you, if you're comfortable talking about this.
Anything.
Do you try to monetize your channel directly? I know that you obviously get book sales and traffic to your website or your production company, but do you monetize your channel itself, either through YouTube ads, sponsorships, affiliate links? A
little bit of all those things. But I have to say, when you say passion project, that's pretty accurate in my case. I mean, I'm not making a living off of this, but I am making it so that it can go forward, and it serves other purposes. So, it serves the purposes of my books, which also I've made courses that go along with the books, and those are deployed through Kajabi, and people can sign up. They pretty much follow the books 100%, but they're video, and it's me talking through, what I wrote about in the book, and I'm obviously adding different content, that sort of thing. So it's kind of an ecosphere. I mean, I really admire people, and I've heard some of your other shows, some of these massive YouTubers are just phenomenal. And my son was one of them. He kind of retired, but he and his buddy built up a channel with, I think, about 5.5 million subscribers and over 1 billion views, So I admire that. I don't see that I'm really going to ever build in that direction. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised someday. Here's the thing I feel, Grant. I feel like my content is some of the best stuff out there. And I don't just say that because I think it's true. I hear that from a number of viewers and their comments. And because I'm really trying to bring them reliable content from working photographers who have been in National Geographic, Rolling Stone, written books, been published all over the place. These are very skilled people. And I'm bringing them I'm bringing them into a conversation that they probably would never have otherwise. And so that's my passion behind it. Like probably a lot of YouTubers, I've gotten burnt out. And I'm like, I don't know what to say anymore. I'm tired of doing this, but I can't stop because I feel it is important. And this is the reality of something that you're doing week after week after week after week. You have to keep coming up with something fresh, and that can be a challenge.
And I think it's smart that it probably helps you keep things fresh when you kind of have all these projects outside of YouTube.
Yeah.
That clearly feed into YouTube in a way, and then YouTube feeds into them. Because I have experienced burnout myself as a YouTuber. So,
yeah.
I don't know if you looked into my background, but I have a channel called Treesicle.
I did.
It has close-ish to 1 million subscribers.
Nice.
And I was doing that full time for about 5 years, and it was a blast. But I absolutely got burned out because it was my full-time job.
Yeah.
But I think, you being an adventurer and having all these outside projects that you can kind of just post to YouTube is really the way to go. And I also did want to ask you, I was looking at your analytics.
Yeah.
October of 2019 was a very interesting year for your channel, or month rather. You got 683,000 views and over 5,000 subscribers. Can you talk about, was it one video or two videos that kind of blew up? What was that? Why do you think it got popular?
Boy,
what's going
Grant,
on?
we have dissected that backwards and forwards, and that was a fun month. What happened was I had a particular video with one of the photographers I interviewed some time ago, and then I did a new interview with him. His name is Dan Milner, and the guy is just awesome. He speaks truth. And he goes against the grain of what you hear from a lot of people. He's like a non-gearhead. And the video that set that off is why I think it was something like why I shoot with one camera and a single lens. And it just resonated. Now, YouTube, as you know, will reward you. When they see your analytics going up, they tend to give you... Amazon does the same thing. It's interesting. When your books sell more, they push them more. It's kind of a cool thing. And YouTube does that as well. If they see things are hotting up, I don't know what's behind all that. Nobody does, right? But there's a little gift that goes on there. But that's basically what happened. And it wasn't just his video that shot up, but some of my other big videos caught on, kind of got new traction all over again. And that's one of the tricky things, as you know, as a YouTuber, to go, how do I keep that? How do I sustain that? I'll tell you another example. This is just kind of a fun story. So my son Lance, he's also known as Skate God, he and his buddy were making skateboard videos. And one of the video series they created was You Make It, We Skate It. And people would send them weird skateboards and they'd go out and skate. And somebody sent them a glass skateboard.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This sounds interesting.
So Aaron, who is the pro, was skating it and it broke. Now he wasn't hurt, but glass was shattered and it, boom. That video, I don't know if it topped out at about 50 million views, something like that. But it got picked up by Huffington Post and various news channels. But I remember talking with Lance, how do I get another glass skateboard? And they tried all sorts of different things, but there's that little combination of ingredients that just worked, and that's on my scale. That was the same thing that happened. Dan Miller, fresh voice, just going, look, don't get all this gear, just get one good camera, really buckle down and learn it. And I still believe that's true. And he voiced something that a lot of people thought, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did see the thumbnail for this video on your channel, and it stood out to me. Especially, I've had a couple photography, videography gigs, and one of the hardest things is like, what equipment do you bring?
Yeah.
And I mean, I basically filled my car with equipment and only used 10% of it. And so it was like, well, this seems like a lot of wasted time. So I mean, clearly, the video with Dan Milner, it hit an important point that a lot of people were looking for.
For sure.
Obviously, if you're an expert in your field like he is, or you are, then you're going to have a better idea of what people in your field want. And in this case, you released this video, and lo and behold, it was a hugely popular topic. I am curious, did you feel there was anything about the editing or the way that you made the video that was different? Or do you think it was just Dan's presentation? Do you think there was anything special about it beyond the topic itself?
I do, I do think it was a well-crafted video. And anyway, we did change, mainly because of COVID. I think became more difficult to have that kind of in-person shooting as opposed to we were doing live broadcasts. But it is a really well-crafted video, I have to say. I think it's one of our best for sure.
Okay, so I am curious, how many hours a week do you put into your channel? Is this a part-time thing? I know it is part-time, but how part-time are we talking?
Pretty part-time right now. I would say under 5 hours. I'm right now trying to figure out, I'm kind of looking at a new series, and if it gets traction, I'll expand the number of hours. But I've got a lot, as you already have observed, I've got a lot of things going on. I do consulting. I'm creating a whole new platform for my online courses. I'm doing a whole new marketing campaign for my books. So I have to kind of, carefully parse out my time. There was a time where YouTube was pretty much a full-time thing for me, mainly because I had I was just creating that content as a sponsor. I had a sponsor that was affording me that time. And that's really a lot of fun. But now it's just not possible anymore to put more than a certain amount of time into it. And I have to just kind of gauge my time in terms of, well, how is this all going to work together? I will always do this because it's fun and I really do like, communicating with my audience. But it is a budgeting of time becomes a really important factor, as you probably know from having been there. Sounds like that's exactly what happened for you too, right?
So much so, yes, very much so. And so you're making courses. Can you describe what those are? What will people be learning in your courses?
So what I've done is I've taken my books, so Advancing Your Photography, and I basically took each chapter and turned it into a video. And what's great about it, it's all visual. So, I'm a big believer in books, but I'm also a big believer in audio-visual aids that go along with the book. And that's basically what you have here is you have everything in the book. It has been turned into a video. It's me describing it and saying, okay. And then of course we're cutting in a lot of footage of examples. And I also go out for one of my other books, a little bit for this book, but my book on composition, I go out and I give examples of me shooting with a couple of models. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do it with models, you know. And I'm shooting outdoors in a beautiful environment and showing them examples of these various different composition tools. Because I'm trying to give people the feeling of like what you would experience if you had a workshop from me, as much as you can. So it's not like in a classroom where we're actually out, you're following me around, and that's great. And you know, you can do something completely different with that kind of a video than you would do on YouTube. Although I listen to your podcast about these really long videos, YouTube videos, I'm really surprised. I had no idea, because I like long form content a lot. I like to let it go as long as it's interesting, but I like to go long with stories and with examples, because sometimes you can't squeeze it into 2 or 3 minutes. You know, sometimes it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. You know, it's amazing. So that's what I do with those courses.
That sounds great, especially because like you already do these live streams and you're already kind of teaching people in a like classroom sort of setting. It has a casual but professional vibe. And I'm sure like your courses will be a natural expansion to that.
They are.
And so do you already have them, or are you working on them right now?
Well, I have 1, 2, 3 courses right now up, and I'm going to be adding more all the time. So, but those 3 form the basis of really learning photography. So if somebody says, let's say I've been out shooting with an iPhone, smartphone, whatever, and they think, I want to get more serious about it. I really want to understand the art of photography. I want to understand cameras. Like one of the courses, it's actually a series of courses bundled together into one, right? But one of them is, here's how your camera works. Let me show you from beginning to end how this amazing tool works. And I really try to show in a simple way. Because one of the big confusing things, and it's funny because I'm just designing content right now, the most confusing thing about modern digital cameras is you have all these menus. You have all these different choices. But the truth is, the best cameras in the world, I have a shelf with a whole bunch of cameras on it. You can't really see it. Well, there's a picture of one right there but these cameras had 4 different controls, and they produced the most amazing photographs of all time. So why do we all of a sudden need to go from 4 controls to 400 or whatever's in a modern camera? Well, the truth is you don't probably need most of those. You're going to use, like you said, you go on a shoot and you use 10% of your equipment. It's a good idea to have backup equipment on a shoot. You should have extra stuff. But for the average person out there, they don't need to get all bogged down in all these other menus and things. You need to know those 4 things so well that you can practically do it in your sleep. And that's really important. That's the kind of thing I like to teach.
Yeah, and that's clearly valuable information. I've been trying to figure out this beast of a camera that I bought, and it's super valuable to look up these tutorials on YouTube with people who have been there and kind of done that. But they're usually very surface level. I think that's fantastic that you're really going into detail and kind of making some big courses involving this.
Yeah. One of the courses I have is with a National Geographic photographer who happens to have the highest number of views on my YouTube channel. His name is Bob Holmes. So I followed him around for 2 days with my team on assignment. So he's out shooting a real assignment, and I'm following him and just asking him questions. So instead of it being an interview, we're actually shooting. And I said, Bob, what? So tell me how you're doing this. What are your settings? What caught your eye? You know, it's like an ongoing dialogue. So it's pretty cool. That's something you probably will not find anywhere else. And it's interesting, Grant, because it ties right into my YouTube channel. In fact, one of the things I did was we researched the questions and comments that people had asked on his videos, and I used those when I interviewed him, or when I followed him around. I asked him those exact questions. So it kind of expanded what you saw in the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw your videos with him, and he's a fascinating guy.
He's good.
Yeah, like, I mean, National Geographic photographer, traveled the world, has been doing it for 35 years, I think.
At least, yeah.
I think the fact, especially that you're able to put up these interviews with him and then get feedback from your audience about, like, things that they specifically want to know. I mean, that's one of the great things about this platform is how interactive it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think, you know, I'm kind of the generation that I don't super remember the world before all of these internet platforms, but correct me if I'm wrong, but filmmaking seemed like it was more of a one-way street, like decades ago, where you kind of like show things, and unless you're showing them and you're in the theater with the people who are watching it, it's kind of like you can't get that feedback as easily.
So true, Grant. I mean, that's the thing. And not only was it a one-way street, it was a very expensive street. Very expensive. I mean, you know, the equipment was more expensive, and then of course you're shooting film, you have to process it, and then you have to pay a lot for your editing, and it became, and what's your opportunity to just make a film and just put it up somewhere? I mean, that's the beauty of YouTube. But yes, that interactivity is fantastic, because I've learned a lot from my audience. I can ask questions and get answers and give them answers. And also I find where I might have a hole in my presentation. I go, oh, wow, I see. I better explain that more thoroughly, you know. So it definitely adds a whole layer that we never had before.
Wonderful. And so I am curious, what is one adventure or like thing that happens that you feel wouldn't have happened without YouTube? Like I guess I'm fishing for a story here.
Here's a good one. Yeah. When I first started the channel, I thought, I want to interview photographers. I want to start with, I wrote on a piece of paper the biggest names of photography that I knew of. And Annie Leibovitz and Ansel Adams were at the top of the list. So I noticed that Annie Leibovitz was coming to San Francisco for an exhibit, and I had not produced a single video. Nothing. I think maybe I had one or two like little throwaway kind of videos up, but nothing serious, right? So I wrote her people and I said, hey, I'd like to come with my film crew and interview her or follow her around, and they said yes. So that never would have happened without having a platform there. And then right around the same time, I did the same thing with Ansel Adams' family. Same response. In fact, his son invited me to come to Yosemite, where Ansel Adams had made his name, you know, Half Dome, and right, and invited me and my film crew to go to parts of the Yosemite Park that hadn't even been opened to the public because it was, you know, it was May, and you know, snow doesn't really start melting until then. So the roads were closed. They had to plow the road, let us in. That never would have happened. And here I am sitting up, and you can see that video. I'm sitting up with the waterfalls going, and I'm talking to Ansel Adams' son and asking him questions that I've always wanted to know.
And what is that video called so people can find it?
I don't remember actually what the name of it, but if you just search Ansel Adams on my channel, you'll find it.
For sure. Wow.
So those are two stories, and I have lots of other ones similar to that. You get to places you never would have gotten to before.
Definitely. And it's like YouTube, right? So if you are living an awesome life, a cool life, doing things that you want to do, and you're able to capture that somehow, I mean, you're probably going to do well on this platform. And I mean, you're living proof of it. I'm ironically sort of just starting to really realize that and to live that in my life, because the way I got big on YouTube was very like scripted content about video games, and I would like include interesting things in my life in these videos, but they were very like focused on video games and philosophy. They weren't so much personal adventures or anything like that. And I think it's interesting how wide of a breadth of information and video types there are that you can do. And I think for those who are interested in YouTube as a hobby, you really can just do whatever. Like you sent emails and messages and got a hold of people just that you think would be interesting. And I mean, Ansel Adams' son, like that's awesome. His family, like you can really get creative and weird with it, and it can do well, and you've got views with it. Like I think it's wonderful. I'm excited to be talking to people like you who have kind of, in my opinion, used YouTube more. What's the word? Authentically, maybe.
Okay.
Not that I wasn't authentic, but again, it was like there were so many layers between me and the final product.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Yeah, and I've been in admiration of other YouTubers who really taken something. It has to be something you're passionate about. I mean, if you aren't, you're not going to want to wake up however often you're producing videos, because YouTube is not a one-shot thing. I use the analogy, it's like surfing. Surfing is something you really have to be dedicated to. I hear people say, "Oh, I went surfing once." Or, I went snowboarding once. No. There's no, in those kinds of sports, there's no doing it once. There's doing it years. It's measured in decades, really, to get good at it. And the thing is, YouTube is kind of the same way. If you're going to get into it, you can't just put out a couple of videos and see what happens. You have to, really dedicate yourself to it for the long haul, I believe.
That is truth. Yeah, consistency is key. That's probably the most important thing, is just being consistent, because even just doing that, you're going to continue to get better. Your first video on YouTube may not be the greatest thing in the world, but you make that one, then you make another one, and another one.
You learn from it,
and eventually you're going to look back on your really old videos, and you might even cringe. But that is just evidence that you are growing as an artist and as a person.
Very true.
And
I still feel like I'm going to hit on something that I haven't even thought about, because, marketing, they talk about in marketing, you got to get a big idea. I mean, the things that have actually made a big difference are big ideas. I'm a big fan of Tesla, especially now. I drive by the gas station and I see the price of gas and I think, what do you know? That's what it costs, and that was a big idea, that he had, to take people off of fossil fuel and bring electric cars to people that might not have otherwise. And I think he also helped push a lot of other auto manufacturers into the market as well. But you got to have a big idea that you're interested in that's also going to resonate. And that's a tricky thing. So right now I'm in that point where I'm trying to figure it out. I mentioned to you, Grant, that I'm actually looking for somebody to collaborate with. A younger person who has maybe some of the things that you have. See, fortunately, I've always been into computers as long as I can remember, but not everybody my age is like that. but it's still different. You guys have an advantage in terms of, really being in touch with some of the things that we can do that I might not think about. So I am actually, if somebody out there is interested, you can always email me and let me know if you'd like to collaborate in some way.
Well, I'll definitely be sending you an email.
Cool.
I am curious, do you have any advice for people who they have an idea in their head, but they're not sure, is this actually a good idea, or is this just some, weird fever dream? Like, how would you help somebody figure out, is my idea good? How do I manifest it? How would you go about that?
Grant, at the end of the day, you're never going to know until you put it out there. I've come up with ideas I thought were wonderful and they just didn't go anywhere. And I've come up, and then I've been really surprised. Wow, I didn't know that was going to take off. And you have to put it out there. And the beautiful thing about YouTube is you put it out there and it doesn't get views, so what? You haven't, it didn't cost you anything really. I mean, maybe you had some production time. But just be willing to put it out and test. Testing is really important. See what happens. Look at what your audience, how they respond to it. Look at your numbers. Mainly it's about the audience though. Like YouTube loves watch time, because if people are engaged, they're going to watch your video all the way through, or a high percentage. And that's really important. But that's just true of any content creation, whether you're writing a book. I don't want to write books that people read 3 pages of. I want them to read the whole book. So just be willing to share. And that's one of the points of what I call the cycle of creativity. The last point is putting your work out there to the world, and have the courage to do it. Also, and I have to tell you, of course, you're going to have people who are going to shoot you down, because unfortunately 20% of people out there are negative, and they will go against you and do everything they can to have you shut up. Well, don't pay attention to the 20%. Pay attention to the 80% who like your work.
Yeah,
listen to them.
You don't want to listen to the haters too much. You'll lose your mind.
You just want to shut them out as best you can. Because that's their job is to hate, and your job is to create.
Follow the love, not the hate.
Yeah. And I say this all the time, creativity is the antidote for destruction and hatred. So just get onto a creative bent and go for it.
Wow, Marc Silber, this has been absolutely wonderful. It's been a joy talking to you. Where can people find you so that they can experience more of you and your work, and perhaps even have you help them with a film or two?
Yeah, well, the easy thing, if you can remember my name, Marc Silber, it's got 2 different letters in it. If you type that into YouTube, you type it into Instagram, even Pinterest, LinkedIn, anywhere, you can find me just by my name. But you can also go to silberstudios.com, and all my links will be in there, my books, everything else. Also, you can find my books on Amazon, same way. Type my name, Marc Silber.
Right on. Marc, thank you very much.
Grant, my pleasure.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you in the next one.